Dear students, so in this lecture we will carry forward our discussion regarding time frequency analysis. So for time frequency analysis we started with the short term Fourier transform. We saw that the simple discrete Fourier transform cannot give us time information. So when we go from time domain to frequency domain, we lose our time domain information. So we will see again that how we can work on time frequency analysis using the wavelet transform. So for motivation, I will start again with this picture which I discussed in the last class also, that the main issue is that some signals in our climate science or in seismology, that the frequency characteristics are non-stationary with respect to time. So that it can happen that there are certain frequencies which are present in certain location in time and in space, and certain frequencies are present in different locations. So that information we lose when we take a simple Fourier transform or a simple periodogram, when we look on a simple periodogram. But in seismics, the ground motion or the seismogram is non-stationary, as we know that most of the time the body waves, like for example P wave and S wave, they arrive first in your seismogram, in the beginning part of your seismogram, which have usually higher frequencies, whereas the surface waves, they arrive in the later part of your seismogram, which are of relatively lower frequencies. So typically a seismogram is exhibits a non-stationary frequency characteristics. So what do we do in that case? We saw that we started with short-term Fourier transform, and this slide is again showing you what is the issue with the Fourier transform, the typical Fourier transform what we perform. The main issue is that it gives us a complete information regarding the harmonic components with certain frequencies present in our signal or in our time series, and what is the strength of those harmonic components associated with a particular frequency, right? We saw that the power spectral density or energy spectral density tells us the contribution of different frequency components in the total variance, right? But when we go from the time domain to frequency domain using the Fourier transform, we lose the time information. We know that which frequency components are present, but we do not know at which time or at which location they are present in our time series. So in order to address this problem, we started with the short time Fourier transform, which is initially was also called Gabor transform, because he was the first guy who started this, or who did this. So the main idea of short term Fourier transform was that we, rather than taking the Fourier transform of the entire signal, what we do that we use some window functions. It can be a rectangular window function or a Gaussian type window function, as you can see here. So rather than taking the Fourier transform of the entire signal, we multiply it with a window function of a certain length. Of course, this window function can have a length equal to this, but then equal to your entire signal, but then it will not solve our purpose. Then we have essentially the same signal. So what you want, that you want small window functions, smaller in length, so that you can see which frequencies are present here, which frequencies are present here, which frequencies are present here. So you take a window function, you multiply it with your signal, and then take the Fourier transform of that segmented time series. So I am calling it segmented time series. So you, when you have one window function, you compute the Fourier transform here, then you shift towards right whatever amount you choose. Then next time you have this segmented time series like this, and then you take its FFT, and the next time you move further right, and so on and so forth, and every time you take the fast Fourier transform or discrete Fourier transform. So that is how you compute what I called was spectrogram, that it gives you time and frequency information. However, the major issue with the spectrogram was that we had an issue with the time and frequency resolution. So if we want to increase the time resolution, we were losing frequency resolution, as you can see here. I showed this slide in the last class also. And if we want to have a better time resolution, so if we want to have a better frequency resolution, we are losing time resolution. This we have clearly seen in the last class. So there are some drawbacks of short term or short time Fourier transform. So as I told you that the window length, whatever window we are using, we can use a rectangular window, we can use a Gaussian window, or we can use a Henning window or a triangular window. So when we do this short term Fourier transform, the window length, whatever window length we choose in terms of time or in terms of location, for example, if you are choosing a 5-second window or a 2-second window, so what is happening, that you keep the window length fixed and keep on shifting this towards right? So because of that, the problem is that we are losing either the time resolution or frequency resolution. So if you keep a very narrow window so that you will have a better time resolution, that means you are keeping your window length or window size is small, you will have better time resolution, no doubt, but you will lose frequency resolution. Similarly, if you want to improve your frequency resolution, you will have to make your window length larger. That means you will lose your frequency resolution. So these are main challenges associated with the short time Fourier transform. So in order to address this problem, people discovered a new sort of transform, what is called wavelet transform. So it is an alternative approach to the short time Fourier transform to overcome the resolution problem. So it is similar to short time Fourier transform essentially because the signal is multiplied with a function here as well, but it is not Fourier transform. This you have to keep in mind. So what do we do? So I am just representing here a continuous wavelet transform. There is a discrete version of this also, which I am not discussing here because what I want to discuss mostly here is the concept of wavelet transform. So you have xt, which is your input data sequence xt. It is multiplied with a function psi star t minus tau divided by s and then integrated over the entire time. So what you get is a wavelet transform. Now there are two parameters. T is your time sequence, tau is your shifting parameter, as there was a shifting parameter because you will shift it in time towards right, and s is the scale parameter. And this psi function, this is called a mother wavelet. Why mother wavelet? Because we can derive other functions of similar type or offsprings. That's why its name is mother. So we can have offsprings of this wavelet or of this function with different scale or different frequency content, right? So here you can see there is no Fourier transform involved. This e to the power minus j omega or e to the power j omega n thing is not involved here. So psi is your wavelet. This is a wavelet function and you can choose any sort of wavelet function with certain conditions. So there are certain conditions, otherwise if your function satisfies those conditions, then it can be as a wavelet. So tau is the shift, that how you move your, because as I discussed in the short time Fourier transform, that you choose a window and you keep on moving that window or shifting that window over your time signal. Similarly, you do the same thing, you choose a wavelet function and keep on shifting or keep on moving this window function over your actual time series. The important parameter is here s. So this s is called scale parameter, so which I will discuss in couple of minutes. But what you get here, the wavelet transform of your time signal, input time signal, is a function of tau, which is shift. It was same in STFT, and the parameter s. So wavelet means a small wave, because wave term is coming. Wavelet means a very small wave. The smallness refers to the condition that this window function is of finite length. I said it is a mother wavelet. Mother wavelet implies that we can have more functions or can derive more function from this main function. In other words, the mother wavelet is a prototype for generating the other window functions of different lengths or different amplitudes. The term translation is used in the same sense as I said in the STFT. However, this is very important. We do not have frequency parameter in case of wavelet transform. As we had a frequency transform in the a frequency parameter in case of Fourier transform, discrete Fourier transform or short term Fourier transform, there was always a frequency component associated, because we were using sine and cosines as our basis functions. Here our basis functions are not sines and cosine, our basis functions are those wavelets. So there is no frequency component associated here. What we have rather than that is S. There it was a tau and omega, here tau and S. I will come to what S is. However, this scale parameter can be thought of as inversely related to the frequency. We will see how. So, this is the equation which we have. S is the scale parameter, the entire is normalized by this scale parameter. This is our mother wavelet. As I said, what is a wavelet and what is a mother wavelet? Actually, what happens, we use different versions of this wavelet function. So, we have one wavelet function with a particular scale factor which is S. We treat it as a mother wavelet because we can derive other wavelets depending upon this scale parameter. So, we can have a stretched version or a dilated version of a wavelet. We will show what do I mean by those wavelets. So, you can have these wavelets, sort of wavelets. So, these are small waves. So, they have a oscillatory nature, that is why we are calling them wave, but they do not extend from minus infinity to plus infinity, or they do not extend too much in time. So, they are finite length, that is why they are wavelets, small wave. So, different wavelets we can use. You can see this is a Haar wavelet, which is sort of a rectangular pulse. This is Shannon wavelet, or you can see it looks like a sinc function. These are Dowbeach wavelets. The mostly used wavelets like our Mexican hat. I have not shown here Morlet, but we will see Morlet wavelet also. So, these are wavelets, our mother wavelets for example. So, we can choose either this wavelet or this wavelet, and then we can make a stretched or a dilated version of this one. So, now I am coming to the scale. So, this is your wavelet, for example, mother wavelet. You can see it is a compressed version. This left one is a compressed version of your actual wavelet, which is mother wavelet. That is why we called it mother wavelet, that we can derive different forms of this wavelet from here. We can derive different wavelets. So, this is your mother wavelet. As you can see, this is a sort of stretched compressed version, and this is a stretched, as if you have stretched your wavelet, but it is the same wavelet, right? Here comes the concept of scale. So, the parameter scale in the wavelet analysis is very much similar to the scale you use in your maps. So, when you see your maps, there is always a scale associated with the map. So, you know that when we say that the scale is very large, like 50 kilometer or 1 kilometer scale, for example, is that map is using, or 10 kilometer scale, for example, let us say 10 kilometer scale. So, a large scale means you are watching those features which are global features. You are not interested in details. Details means what is happening to a 10 meter distance or 10 meter separation. When you have a scale like of 10 kilometers, so you are not interested in a bridge of 10 meter or 100 meter. So, whatever features you are interested in global features, large scale features like roads, rivers, or something like this, big structures. So, that gives you a non-detailed global view. Whereas the low scale in the map means if you choose your scale, for example, 10 meters or 100 meters in place of 10 kilometers, then you will see more detailed information in the map, that where there is a pedestrian, what is the width of that pedestrian, what is the length of a bridge over a river. These information then you will clearly see, right? So, the same concept is here. In terms of frequency, high scale means it is providing you low frequency information, and usually those low frequency information extend over the entire series, over the entire time signal, or over the entire map, like a mountain chain. You can see a mountain chain in your map easily with a large scale. That information you can easily see. So, it gives you the global information, a broad picture, low frequency information. Whereas low scales, if you are using shorter scale, it gives you a high frequency information. As I said, pedestrians, as I said, bridge lengths, width of your houses, dimension of your houses, all these information, the hidden part you can see. So you can easily see that this looks like that it is a high frequency thing because it is compressed and it is having within the same interval of time it is giving you a high frequency information, whereas this is giving you easily this visually also this is sort of giving you a low frequency information. So that is how the scale and frequencies are related. This is very important in convolutional neural network also, those who are already doing machine learning. It is more or less the same concept, that if we want to see detailed information, we are going to reduce our scale. If we are going to see broad pictures, low frequency information, we are going to extend our scale. Just see your map, any geographical map, geological map. So S less than 1, if 1 corresponds to your mother wavelet, S less than 1, that means we are compressing our original mother wavelet, right? Smaller scale. If S is greater than 1, then we are extending or dilating our original wavelet. That means we are looking on the low frequency side. So now think, earlier we were using constant window width in case of a short term Fourier transform. Here what we are doing, here we are changing the width depending upon which frequencies we want to see. So if I want to see high frequencies, I am using a smaller scale. If I want to see low frequencies, I am using a larger scale. Whereas in case of short term Fourier transform, we were always using a window function of constant length. That's why the problem of resolution was coming there. So here we are varying a sort of our telescope depending upon what we are looking, what information we are looking for. You can imagine it as a telescope also. So the condition for wavelet transform to exist, there are two main mathematical conditions, that the wavelet should be of finite energy. That means the wavelet should be localized in time and frequency. We should know what is the time extent of the wavelet and what is the frequency band associated with this window function. So this is your window function. You can take a Fourier transform of this, right? You can take the Fourier transform of your window function itself. Okay, you are not taking Fourier transform in wavelet transform. There is no Fourier transform involved, but for this you can see clearly that there is some frequency associated with this. You can see when you will take the Fourier transform of the wavelet function itself, not when you multiply it with the data. You see this definition, I am repeating again, there is no Fourier transform involved here. But you can get an information what frequency component is associated with this. I will show you. So your wavelet should have a finite energy and it should be completely located in terms of or localized in terms of time and frequency, and the inner product of your signal and the wavelet function, because you are going to multiply your wavelet with the actual signal, right? As we were doing in STFT, that we are multiplying it and then taking the Fourier transform. Here we are just multiplying it and then summing it over the entire time signal's duration. One important condition is the admissibility condition, which tells you that, which is like this, that the integration of Fourier transform, this is frequency version of your mother wavelet. So this is your mother wavelet, psi t was your psi t minus tau divided by s was your mother wavelet. So you take the Fourier transform of this and take the mod and square of divided by this omega, d omega should be less than infinity. This is admissibility condition. What is important here, the admissibility condition implies that the Fourier transform of psi t was your mother wavelet, must vanish at 0 frequencies. So if my omega is 0, you know that it cannot be less than infinity, then the entire integration will be in infinity, because it will automatically become infinity because omega will be 0. So in order to make this less than infinity, or in order to avoid this, that this integration becomes infinity, what should happen? You think it? Because omega is becoming 0, so this entire thing will automatically become infinity. So in order to avoid that it becomes 0, what you will do, that psi omega should also become 0. The numerator should also become 0 when psi omega tending to 0. So that means the Fourier transform must vanish at 0. That means at 0 frequency the amplitude of your Fourier transform should be 0, means the average of the wavelet in time domain should be equal to 0. So if you average your wavelet in time, this wavelet, if you average it, it should be 0. That means this positive part, the sum of this thing should be 0. This is interesting, what the statement which I made. You should think upon, you should ponder upon this. When I say that 0 frequency component, when I say 0 frequency component, you should automatically think that it is a DC component. It is 0 means the average of your time signal should be 0. So think upon this. You will hear it many times, or you will need it many times also. Such interpretations are important. So these are mathematical conditions for wavelet transform to exist. Whereas in Fourier transform, there were some additional conditions. What were those conditions? If you remember, of course, that the function should be integrable. It should not become infinity. But in case of Fourier transform, there was one more interesting thing, that the sines and cosines were the basis functions. So sines and cosines basis functions means they are orthogonal functions. As you remember, if you take the integration of sine multiplied by cos theta, sin theta multiplied by cos theta, it will be 0. We exploited this orthogonality condition in determining an and bn, if you remember, right? So this condition is not necessary here in case of wavelet transforms, that those wavelets psi should be orthogonal, those different wavelets, because you can generate n number of wavelets from a mother wavelet depending upon changing by your s. So you can, when we are saying changing scale, means you can change your scale s. So a larger s will make it a extended version, a smaller s will make it a compressed version, right? As we saw here, that s greater than 1 will make a dilated version, it will stretch it, and s smaller than 1 will compress it. So you can generate different wave functions or wavelet functions, and then you will have a shifted version of this, because you are going to shift them along your time signal, along your actual time series, right? So they may generate orthogonal set of functions, those different time shifted and scaled versions of your wavelet functions, but it is not a necessary condition. So I'm mentioning you some typical method as we discussed in the STFT case, short term Fourier transform case, that the wavelet is in the beginning placed at the beginning of the signal, as we did in the case of STFT, and set s equal to 1. So this is your most compressed wavelet. You believe that it is your most compressed in your case. And the wavelet function at scale equal to 1. So you have fixed s equal to 1 is multiplied by the signal, your actual signal, it is multiplied and integrated over all times. Now what you will do, you will shift it right, shift the wavelet with the same s equal to 1. You take your time 1 second, 2 seconds, whatever you do, you shift it towards right and repeat the process. Repeat the process means you integrate over the entire time until you finally reach to the end of the signal. Once you have reached to the end of the signal, now you will do, so what you will have a row. You will have, because you will have a two-dimensional vector space here. So two-dimensional matrix, sort of two-dimensional matrix. So what you will have, corresponding to s equal to 1, you will form a row, because corresponding to different taus. S equal to 1 will be making your first row, and then you will have different taus in this row, CWT corresponding to different taus. Next time what you will do, you will change your s equal to 2 and then repeat the process. So you will have for s equal to 2 a second row, and the columns in those rows will be the values corresponding to different taus. So you will keep on doing this until you reach you decide your S, certain value S. This is up to you. You can decide this S depending upon the frequency you are interested in, because as I said, S will be related with frequency, and we will see this also. So you can compute a two-dimensional matrix sort of thing for different S's and taus, right? That is what will be your wavelet transform. Now, how the scale is related to frequency. So the precise relation between scale and frequency depends upon the wavelet, which wavelet you are using, whether you are using a Haar wavelet or a Morlet wavelet or a Mexican het wavelet. So the relationship between F, the frequency, and the wavelet is the central frequency of the wavelet. I am coming to this. What is central frequency? Divided by 2 pi s, where s is your scale. So omega c is the frequency corresponding to the peak, the central frequency, peak of the amplitude of the Fourier transform of the wavelet. So I am showing you. This is your Morlet wavelet, and I took Fourier transform of this. This is the Fourier transform of this wavelet, just the FFT of this wavelet. So you can see the peak of this wavelet comes here somewhere around, I guess, 11-12 hertz, right? So this is my omega c here, 2 pi fc, and I will divide it by s, whatever scale factor I have chosen here. So that will give me the frequency associated with this wavelet. So that is how we compute the frequency associated with the wavelet. Now, the relationship between frequency and scale, as you see, the larger the scale, the lower will be the frequency. So what I did for this Morlet wavelet, I changed my scale from S 1 to 10 or 1 to 11, I guess. And then I computed different frequencies and I got this sort of plot. And as expected, larger the scale, that means I'm looking at low frequency information, and when I'm at smaller scales, that means my wavelet is compressed and I'm looking at high frequency information. This is very interesting, that we can change our scale depending upon which information or which frequency information we want to have. So now, after seeing this, that how we can switch between scale and frequency, this is a sort of relation between scale and frequency, and we discussed here that how we can compute if you want to do it by hand, but nowadays you have different helps in different libraries or packages in Python and in the routines in MATLAB. So they can easily do continuous wavelet transform as well as discrete Fourier transform. I am sorry, discrete wavelet transform, continuous wavelet transform and discrete wavelet transform. So I want to give you some examples. So we had this this chirp signal which I was showing you in the beginning. So that in the beginning we had high frequency, and then with the time the frequency was decreasing. This I showed you in the last class of STFT also, and that was our spectrogram. You can easily see this spectrogram here. So because of fixed window width, we see the blurring here. So this is smearing of energy, right? But when I use the wavelet transform, you can see how much we are able to resolve it in terms of resolution, whether it is in frequency, mainly in terms of frequency. I am clearly able to, the resolution is clearly high here. You can easily see the difference. One important thing I want to mention, in case of short term Fourier transform, the plot which we get, the time frequency plot which we get, is a spectrogram. In case of wavelet transform, because it is actually the information between scale and time, we do not have frequency as such in the theoretical formulation of wavelet transform. So we call it a scaleogram. Scaleogram. I have forgotten, I forgot to write it, but you can note it down that it is scaleogram. So you can clearly see how much we are able to resolve it. Now one example I want to give you from the climate science. So I took this example from the web somewhere. So this is an El Nino data set, is a time series data set that contains quarterly measurements of the sea surface temperature from 1871 to 1997. So this is your time series, and you can see moving time average also being calculated here with the orange one, the blue one is the actual data. So when I take the Fourier transform, the red one, and then I plot the power spectrum, so the square of this, the dashed curve is just the square of this. It's not power spectrum, an estimate of power spectrum, remember this, because we are computing it from a single realization. So the black one is your estimate of power spectrum, and this is the actual amplitude of the Fourier transform. Amplitude means the mod of your Fourier transform. So this clearly tells you, if you look here, that there are some low frequency component here. So here frequency means per year. Usually your frequency is per second, but here we are writing it in terms of per year. So you can clearly see that there is a frequency, most of the power or most of the variance is coming from your low frequency part. Please listen carefully what I am saying, that most of the power or most of the variance is being contributed from this part. You see that it is around 0.25 or slightly less than 0.2 to 0.5. So you can divide it by 1.0. 1.0 to 5 means it is around 5 and 2. So 2 to 5 years period or 2 to 8 years period. You can clearly see that there are some variation which are mostly contributing to the energy or to the variance of the signal. They have a period of 2 to 8 years, right? But you don't know from here that like where are they coming in time. You just got to know that these are your dominant periods or these are your dominant frequencies. So period is 1 by frequency or frequency is 1 by period. So here our frequency is divided by per year. So our unit is 1 year, not 1 second. So this is here. When I take the Veblen transform of this, your blue time series, here again time, here is period in years, right? So I just converted this frequency or a scale thing in period. You can clearly see that still it is that most of the contribution is coming from those periodic variations which have frequency in the range of 1 to 8 years, as I said, around from 1 to 8 years from this portion, or let's call it 2 to 8 years from here. This most of the variations are coming from here, right? This we see here also. But interestingly, this frequency in the beginning it is actually coming from a wider range, even up to 16 hertz. But as you move with time, in the recent times, in last 20-30 years, this most of the contribution is moving towards shorter periods. That means higher frequencies. So there are more rapid changes coming in the last 20-30 years, right? And they are in the last one. So this is giving you an information between, you can see 1960 to 1997. So this 30-year data you see. So the variation which was earlier coming in terms of long periods, 8 to 16 years, now it is mostly concentrated between 2 to 8 years. So that additional information you get with the Veblen transform or with the time frequency analysis. Yes, I think that was all for Veblen transform. So it was just to give you a comprehensive idea in terms of basic concepts and some application, that how in climate science or in atmospheric science it has a huge, it has large number of applications. In seismology it has large number of applications, but I thought most of the students are interested in climate science here, so I discussed an example from the climate science. So with this, our time frequency analysis part is also completed.